Welcome to another episode of a Frugal Athlete podcast. Today we got a very special guest, someone that's, when I think of student athletes, when I think of young athletes that have transitioned, he comes top of mind. Kyle Millis, former student athlete at Cal, who's now in the tech space, doing amazing things. I came across his story on LinkedIn and I was like, you know what? I got to reach out to him. Fortunately enough, he responded back to me and now we're here. So Kyle Millis, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, thank you for taking the time. It's early where we're both at, but
Yep.
for the for the doers and the game changers, we always make time. So, real quick, Kyle, I did my stalking on LinkedIn, but for the audience that may not know you, give us a quick rundown.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on. My name's Kyle Millis. I am a former D1 swimmer at UC Berkeley or Cal. And
Go
now I
Bears.
live, yeah, go Bears, baby.
That's the only time I'm saying that. I'm a UCLA guy, but
Likewise. My parents are UCLA parents, so I grew up a Bruin actually.
okay.
Too funny. But anyway, yeah, my after college, I moved out to San Francisco, just across the bay from Cal, and now I'm working in the tech sales space after a quick stint in the financial services industry. And yeah, just hoping to share any tips and insights with any aspiring athletes that I can.
No, I love that. So real quick, because I didn't learn how to swim till fifth grade.
Mhm.
Crazy backstory behind that. But what events did you do?
Yeah, so I was a 100 and 200 backstroker. So the one where you don't have to focus on like breathing every stroke kind of thing, just like lollygagging on your back.
So you got like real flexible shoulders and stuff.
You know, those real flexible shoulders by the end of my college career turned into like really broken down shoulders. I have shoulder problems in both of my shoulders now.
Unbelievable. So let's get into it. So what was the process like, choosing Cal,
Yeah.
against your parents' decision? Um, and then, the college athlete experience.
Yeah, for sure. So, I had the lucky opportunity to always be in around water. I had a pool at my first house growing up from like 1 to age 10. So from a young age, I learned how to swim and I'm very fortunate for that. But my whole life I was a basketball player, played basketball through my freshman year of high school. And it wasn't until after my freshman year of high school, I was kind of like the eighth to 10th man on a 15-man team. And I kind of looked around and realized, I want to make it to the next level of sports at something. And it doesn't look like it's going to be basketball because I'm not getting the time. And yeah, so I was like, what else am I good at? I had done summer league swimming like a couple years prior. And I was like, let me go give myself a dabble at this swimming thing. And I went out for the swim team and I accidentally made the varsity team kind of. And
As a freshman?
as a freshman, I was offered a spot in the varsity team, turned it down because I wanted to go hang out with my friends on JV.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the year, they were like, "Hey, you qualified for it's called a North Coast section." It was before they had the California high school state meet.
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Hey, you have to be on varsity to swim at this meet, so we're gonna have to move you to varsity now." So yeah, as a freshman, I was on the varsity swim team. And then just from there, I kind of kept going and realized that swimming was going to be for me and took up club swimming and everything kind of just fell from there. I'm 6'6", so my stature really helps me in the pool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so everything really just kind of kept going from there. And I basically by my senior year, I had started getting these, national level cuts. Coaches were coming to these meets, these national level meets that I was partaking in. And I kind of narrowed down my choices to a multitude of schools from Michigan, Indiana to ASU to Cal, I think were my final four choices. And, UCLA not having a men's swim team, I wanted to go somewhere in the state of California. So I ended up at Cal and it was a great decision. Got a great education, a great business school education there. So very thankful for that.
No, that's
Won a
amazing.
couple national titles on the way too.
Yeah, you all did your thing, and it's always good, whether you or not, go to the same school. It's always repping California before everyone else. So,
Yeah.
I love how you were determined early on, in
Mhm.
terms of, all right, this path is not the way forward. I'm going to choose another path, and I'm going to
Yeah.
go all guns a blazing. So that is really a great mindset to have. So now, as a student athlete in at the college level. Talk about that experience.
Yeah. You just touched on the how I kind of got there. I was fortunate enough to have two older cousins play college volleyball and kind of lead the path for me to go becoming a college athlete. So they talked to me a little bit about the recruiting process. And, once I got to Cal, my older cousin actually was playing volleyball at Cal as well. So it was a fun little tandem that we had there. And at Cal, Cal was arguably one of the top two swimming schools in the country. We ended up winning the national championship my freshman year, so there was a lot of spotlight that was kind of put on us as a team on campus. Obviously, swimming, like you mentioned earlier, is a underrepresented sport. Every 4 years, we have the shining star, our little shining moment at the Olympics, but outside of that, I don't think anyone would be able to name any college swimmer. Rightfully so, though. I don't think we put enough good enough story out there for everyone to consume. So in college, I started a little YouTube channel and just trying to grow the sport of swimming, and started documenting my life as a swimmer at Cal. And as I mentioned, Cal being one of the top swimming schools, a lot of young aspiring swimmers started taking note and wanting to watch my content. And that's kind of how I really started developing my personality at Cal. That started in my junior year and kind of flowed into my senior year. And I'm just trying to really grow the sport of swimming. And throughout the course of it all, I was able to document my whole last year at Cal, kind of in a scrapbook, if you might say, so I can look back in 20 years and be like, that's what I was doing. And got the chance to document our second national championship that I was a part of. And it was just a really great experience to look back on.
No, I love that. So what was like the initial aha moment for you to start the YouTube channel? Was it obviously NIL, which we're going to get into? Was
Yeah.
it, I just want to, talk about my experience, or, initially you said, grow the game of swimming, or grow the sport of swimming?
Yeah.
Was it a combination of all these things, or was it one specific reason?
Yeah. So, like yourself, I studied at the business school at Cal, so I'm a very business oriented mindset guy. So during the pandemic, I was super into all the investing and like stock, everything related around the finance YouTube space, the Graham Steffens of the world, and stuff like that. I was
Yeah.
consuming all that content. I was like, you know what? I'd made a good couple financial trades, and I thought, who wouldn't want to listen to a college kid ramble on about what to choose with their finances and stuff like that? So I started a finance YouTube channel and quickly realized, as I mentioned earlier, that no one really wants to listen to a college kid tell them how to manage their finances. So didn't seem to get too much traction there, and kind of went back to the drawing board of like, hey, how should I really, how should I sell myself, I guess, online? What am I competent in? And I'm competent in swimming. So that kind of all started coming about. And I started posting videos about swimming after that July 2021 date, when NIL got passed, because prior to that, I kind of went with the finance thing because I was like, hey, the NCAA can't come at me for giving financial advice, but they can come at me for selling myself as an athlete. So as soon as that happened, that's when my channel kind of transitioned. And that's how everything kind of all came about.
No, I love that. Three things that you talked about so far, documenting your journey, knowing when to pivot, and then starting out where like promoting what you're competent in, and then opening the door to the other stuff. So I'm sure once you got people to follow you in swimming, now you can come back and talk about some personal finance lessons that you've learned. When it comes to editing and stuff like that, were you already proficient, or was it just like document the journey, y'all gonna see the real deal stuff, no edits, and kind of go from there?
Yeah, so I had no editing experience. Thankfully enough, I had a teammate of mine who was also in the YouTube space as well. His name's Marcos Rico, and he's still doing YouTube to this day. And he kind of sat me down and was like, look, as a UC Berkeley student, we get access to the whole Adobe suite. So I had, the Adobe Photoshop, the video editor, Premiere Pro, and everything like that. And none of it made sense to me. So we sat down together and spent like 8 hours just editing my first video together. And, that's kind of the learning curve. And then from there, it was just like, all right, let me see what I can do one video at a time. So my whole senior year, that was all me editing. That's all like raw, and that was in between. Those were my downtimes. I would, instead of spending my time probably recovering like I needed to be, I was just sitting in my room relaxing with like some compression on, just editing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole senior year was all me editing and doing the YouTube space. It's a learning curve, but it was super fun.
No, that's amazing. What would you say is the biggest thing that you learned, or, you know, biggest benefactor of you starting that YouTube channel?
Yeah, I think it was really just realizing that I have a voice in this sport. I wasn't always the fastest guy on my team. I wasn't the guy going and winning the NCAA championships for the team. But I realized that through this YouTube channel that, I still have a voice in this sport. I'm very like I'm skilled at swimming like yourself in soccer. Like, I might not have been the fastest guy, but there's still a lot of advice and tips that I can pass on to the younger generations of athletes and stuff like that who want to be college athletes. And I really just tried to embrace that and run with it. I think the biggest benefactor in all of this might be Cal swimming,
Yeah.
because you still have recruits to this day coming back to college, going on recruiting trips, and like, oh, I watched one of your former teammates' videos. I already saw like what it's like to swim at Cal. I already want in. I already
Yeah.
want to come swim here. And so it's really cool for the program to to have those videos for myself and Marcos kind of already documenting the whole Cal swimming experience, and just kind of growing our team over time. I'm pretty sure will be the biggest benefit of all that.
No, most definitely. That's amazing. Why YouTube instead of like Instagram, TikTok? I'm sure you're on other platforms, but was there a strategic
Yeah.
reason as it pertains to social media?
I really think it was just kind of coming back to that, like I wanted to be the finance YouTuber kind of thing. And if it
Uh-huh.
wasn't going to be finance YouTuber, I just really saw the biggest possibility to actually grow my brand, and as a brand really on YouTube. I'm not going to be I'm not really competent in the Instagram space. I had watched a lot of stuff on YouTube, and TikTok was still kind of early when I was in my junior year of college,
Yeah.
I want to say. So it was a bit early for that space, and I had no idea what was going on with that. So yeah, so YouTube just came natural, and the following kind of kept coming on YouTube. So I just kept investing and investing in that. Just wanted to be investing in things that I'm proficient in. Yeah.
I love that. I think that can be applied to, personal finances as well. So let's get
Yeah.
into numbers. I know we're not going to get into like the all the numbers because that's private information, but from the standpoint of being able to monetize now that NIL was in
Yeah.
place around the time you made that pivot into YouTube, you have the YouTube requirements, 1,000
Hmm.
subscribers,
Watch
4,000
hours. Yeah.
4,000 watch hours. So once that happens, talk about that experience because I'm sure a lot of NIL able athletes are, how do I do this? How do I do that? And go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that NIL like switch kind of flipped on July 1st, 2021. And my YouTube channel still wasn't monetized to that point. Like I said, I was still making the finance videos, but it only took a good couple months after that. In November of 2021, I ended up posting this like video that kind of has gone semi-viral since, that literally single-handedly, I was like nowhere close to the threshold. I think I had like 300 subscribers, and I posted this video titled like "Day in the Life of a UC Berkeley student athlete, Cal swimming," and it just took off. Late November, I posted that. I think by December 1st, I was monetized, or December like 10th or something like that. I was monetized. So literally within 2 weeks, I went from
Yeah.
like no growth on my channel to monetized, and I think I made like $500 that month in December after only 20 days of like being monetized. And I was like, whoa, this is a
That
big
flipped the
change.
switch, I bet. Huh?
Yeah. And then, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't the fastest guy on the team. So I wasn't getting the NIL deals, especially in a sport like swimming, where it's not the
Uh,
most monetizable thing. But once that YouTube video kind of went off, I had companies emailing me saying, "Hey, saw your YouTube video, saw you're an athlete, you want this NIL deal?" There's small things, like we'll send you protein powder, we'll send
uh,
you this recovery drink, and a lot of it was just product based and not money based, especially in my space. But as my time grew, especially towards the end of my college career, I remember I was starting to accept small deals, like a couple hundred dollars here, or like, sign up bonuses there kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it started trickling in for sure.
No, that's amazing. So what would your take be now? Like, best negotiation practices, how
Mm.
do you pick the brands that you want to work with? What advice, if you were to tell Kyle Millis, freshman year, going into Cal Berkeley, same situation, how would you tell
Yeah.
him to tell yourself to adjust to monetize with NIL now?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's there's a fine line between, like going with the companies that you love and at the same time just getting the reps
Mhm.
of working with companies and stuff like that. I have done the NIL deals that it's like, oh, like not really proud to represent that company, like doesn't really align with me, but they gave me like a free t-shirt and free food or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like those aren't like the most proud NIL deals that I have, but those were the reps that I kind of needed. And I think that all athletes, there might be these one-off small NIL deals and you can like shove them to the side.
Yeah.
But I think just getting those reps of what is it like to work with a company? What is expected of me on the other end as an athlete from this company kind of thing, will prepare you better for those bigger deals that are more important, and learning how to sell yourself as an athlete. I remember July 1st came around, and like I said, I had no following, but I remember I shot off probably 50 emails to companies, no responses back at all.
Yeah.
Changed my messaging, 50 more emails, got like one or two replies that were like, hey, we're kind of interested, maybe down the line. And then, it's just really getting those reps in, and like learning how to sell yourself. And I think to all athletes out there, there's a point when you have to be selling yourself. And then over time, you'll probably be selling yourself to the brands already by your performance on the field or on the social media side of things. So yeah, just getting the reps in is the best thing I would tell my freshman self.
No, I love that. So how has your content changed now that you're no longer a student athlete?
Yeah. So, this following graduating, I went on like a summer long road trip with a couple of my buddies, and we were doing this tour across America of, touring the best college athletic departments in the country. And I thought, that's really what I want to do. I've done the day in the life myself. I want to do day in the life of other people now and really, share athlete stories with everyone else. It didn't really go to plan, and I had to make a quick pivot with my content really. And I'm still really learning where I fall on this whole spectrum of being a retired college athlete, but still in the athletic space. Sports is something that I love and something that will always remain dear to me. So I want to inspire the next generation of athletes. So that's kind of my motto that I've really been running with following my post-college YouTube days. So doing a lot more, swimming tutorials or recruiting tutorials on how high school students can get recruited to go be in swimming in college, playing football in college, playing soccer in college. Stuff like that, just really broad things to educate my audience. So I feel like that's really the lane I'm going in, and like yourself, I'm jumping into the interview space and doing some interviews with athletes as well. So I think that's really how my content's evolved following college.
No, I love it. Always be evolving. So you
Yeah.
evolved. You talked about, immediately graduating or moving on. You got into the
Yep.
financial industry. Sorry, financial industry. And then
Yeah.
you've pivoted into the tech sales space. Talk about that initial transition
Mhm.
and, finding where you currently are now.
Yeah, for sure. So I graduated Cal 2022 with a BA in business administration, and with I took a lot of extra finance classes. So I always like to say, like, my focus was really in the financial education, like my financial literacy space. So I went on to go work as a client service analyst, which is kind of like just not even a junior analyst, just like almost the lowest guy on the totem pole, is the way I like to think about it in the financial space, working at a larger bank. And basically what I was doing there was kind of just, processing like cash flow transactions and things like that. If a client calls up the bank, they're coming to me and I'm just talking to them. Hey, like, what can I do for you? Do you need cash moved around and things like that?
Right.
And I quickly learned that, like, while this was great, I loved finance. I thought I was going to go be one of these analysts and be trading stocks day one kind of thing. And that was not the case. No one's going to trust a 23-year-old with all that money. So I quickly I was a little bit disappointed in my financial experience, because I just felt like I wasn't really making the impact I had hoped to. One thing I will say to all student athletes, and I think was one of the biggest learning experiences for me, was every summer I didn't take time off my sport, but instead of doing double days, I would always do single days during the summer, and I would do an internship every summer of college. So those internships really prepared me to know what I wanted to do following college. I had done a finance internship and I didn't like it. So I didn't know what I was doing going into finance again after college. I did have one internship I had two internships that I liked, and I had one internship that I really loved, and that was working in tech sales. So after my stint at the bank, around honestly, from an early start at the bank, I realized that I needed to switch careers. But this fall was a very tough job market, so took a little while. But by December, I realized that I needed to go back to tech sales, and I finally had landed an opportunity to go back to tech sales and work in tech sales at Notion, which was really cool for me. And yeah, that's where I am today. And I'm loving tech sales. I feel like it really works well with everyone's like athlete mindset, like
Yeah.
it's the go-getter. There's a goal to hit every day, and there's a high benchmark to reach every, at the end of the year kind of thing. So that's what really works well for me, just mentally as a goal-oriented athlete. And I think that's kind of why I ended up in tech sales.
No, I love it. And so what would be your number one tip in terms of
Mm.
sales? As athletes, we have to sell ourselves every day, but now in the corporate tech space, it's a little bit different, but a lot of similarities. So what's your number one tip as it pertains to sales? And by the way, Notion is a great company, by the way. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm very fortunate to work at Notion in the sense that it's like one of those companies where it's a product-led growth. The
Yeah.
product kind of sells itself for it. So I'm fortunate enough not to have to do a ton of selling. But at the end of the day, I'm a competitor. So when I get on the call with someone who doesn't want to buy, I want to learn why. Why don't you want to buy, and what can we do to fix the product to make it so you will buy next year, kind of thing. But I think the number one thing that I've learned from the selling experience that I would lend everyone to go try and test out is really just your interpersonal relationship skills. When you jump on a call with someone, they're probably having a long day. They don't want to get on a phone call and learn about some software that you're trying to sell them. So make it an enjoyable part of their day. Talk to them about how their life is to start the conversation. Just be personal. And then at the end of it, be like, not the end of it, but just, like, start out the conversation strong, then lead into the salesy bit. And then
Yeah.
at the end of it, come back and make it a personal conversation to end the call. Those interpersonal relationships with, people that are purchasing software, at the end of the day, it'll probably brighten their day to, have you ask them about how their day is going. Well, what'd you do this weekend? Little things like that. People love talking about themselves, I guess. So yeah,
No, most definitely. That's true. What I want to close with, Kyle, I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
of course.
You were originally a personal finance creator, influencer. You still are. But what would be your tips? Young
Mm.
individual, we talk about the situation that we're in financially in the world today, student athletes with the opportunity to make money. What would be your syllabus of financial principles that every student athlete or young individual needs to learn today?
For sure. Some of the principles that just kind of come top of mind to me are learning what investing is, I guess. This concept of investing to a lot of young 18, 19, 20-year-olds is very foreign. They've probably, never really done their research on what a stock is. That's fine. Set up a savings account. Set up your first IRA account. And if you get those NIL deals, start putting a little bit money into savings. After a little while, start dabbling into index funds and stuff like that. What I always told myself and what my dad told me when I was first starting out investing was invest in things that you believe in. And I didn't really think that was, the coolest thing to do. But one thing that I really believed in was electric vehicles. I really saw the path forward, and thankfully I was early enough to be investing in that in 2018, 2019, and definitely grew dividends for me throughout the course of the pandemic with all the EV boom and everything like that. But that was just something that I was really passionate about, living the world of California. You see EVs on the road all the time. How can I, as an athlete, kind of capitalize on that? If an athlete is interested in making, if they're super health conscious or something like that, going and investing in, these companies that are changing the food industry and stuff like that. I think that putting your money where your mouth is the best kind of investment to make, because that's kind of, you live or die by your word kind of thing. So that's kind of my philosophy when it comes to investing. It might not be the best way to go about it, but for all athletes, I would recommend just, learning a little bit more about personal finance and opening up those accounts to begin with, then maybe dabbling into credit cards, and then putting your money where your mouth is, investing in companies that you believe in and that you hope are going to grow over time, because that stuff can become really passive over time. And then one day you just open up your account and things have grown. So it doesn't always work like that. Things can go down, but I think, if you're consistently investing over time and putting your money away, I think that's all you can be asked of as a young 20-year-old who's looking to invest.
Love it. You talked about, you speaking to your dad about investing strategies. Not everyone has parents that can help them when it comes to investing knowledge. So what are some resources that you would recommend, or if there's like a game changer book? Obviously you went to Cal and you took a lot of, finance and business oriented classes, but for someone that may not be have that information readily available, what are some resources? Obviously, you got YouTube University and University of Google, but what other resources would you recommend?
Yeah, like I said, I was fortunate enough to have those conversations with my dad, but quickly I learned that maybe my ideals didn't align exactly with his investing ideals. So I started educating myself as well pretty quickly after I started getting into this space. And for me, it was that YouTube University, listening to people like yourself and everyone that's in the financial realm of YouTube. From, I personally really liked listening to Graham Stephan, and then there's a couple other ones out there from the Meet Kevins of the world that do the morning analyzation of exactly what's going on in the stock market. I think just listening to stuff like that and listening to CNBC for young aspiring entrepreneurs and investors, you'll really just start to get to learn the vernacular of investing and the terminology that comes along with it. And over time, you'll start understanding what they're talking about when they're talking about, oh, like this currency is going down and how that relates to inflation and everything along those lines. Just hearing it over time, I think will be the best thing for all athletes. So YouTube University and CNBC, those are my two best bets.
No, I love it. And then as it pertains to what's one thing that you would want, someone listening to this podcast to take away from you right now?
I think anyone who's listening to this podcast who is an athlete, I would encourage them to go out and start documenting their life on YouTube. I think so many aspiring athletes, those young athletes, those early teen athletes, they want to hear from leaders in the sports. They're not going to be able to get that response from the Messis of the world or the Michael Phelpses of the world, but they might be able to reach out to their favorite content creator, and that might help them continue going in the sport. And I think those little impacts that the athletes can make in someone else's life is really what growing your sport and growing your public image is really all about. So I would encourage all athletes to try out content creation. It can be beneficial from an NIL standpoint, and it can be beneficial from the standpoint of, it's probably going to go inspire some other person to keep going in their sport. So I would say just share your message to the masses is really what I would tell all athletes.
No, I love it. Thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us on the show today. For people that may want to connect with you, how can they do so?
Yeah, you can connect with me on my YouTube channel. It's just Kyle Millis, or feel free to check me out on Instagram at Kyle_Millis. My DMs are open. I'm always looking forward to connecting with other fellow athletes.
Thank you so much, Kyle. There you have it, folks. Young man that is well on his way to building more success, not only showing you the way in the swimming world, not only giving you advice as it pertains to personal finance, but overall good guy that's trying to make some impact. So we appreciate Kyle for coming on,
Thank you.
showing us exactly what it means in our book, what it means to be a frugal athlete. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from him again soon. But in the meantime, that's it. If you can please rate, review, subscribe, thumbs up, whatever it takes to continue to find us ways to get wonderful guests on the show. That's what it's all about. But that being said, catch y'all next week.